Y'all, I am so excited for this first impression video. I really enjoyed everything I read, and I was like, I cannot wait to actually talk about these titles because I have lots of things to say. I had ridiculously long reviews on Goodreads that I wrote, and that's usually a sign that I really enjoyed something. Hello friends, happy Friday. So very excited that you're here. We are having a first impression video that you guys helped voted for what I should feature in this video. For one of my picks, I definitely knew that I wanted to do it. I had promised, or at least I told a friend that I would, but for the other two, I really didn't know what to do. So of course, I asked you guys, I did a poll, and I did the most top voted and then the second most top voted. In case if you missed the news, the most top voted that I'm going to be featuring today or talking about is Trapped by His Love, the Duke's Unexpected Bride. I couldn't remember what the subtitle was. This is a newer Tokyo Pop series. I think it released last month. And then the second winning manga for that poll, which was really surprising to me, honestly, is Twisted Wonderland, the manga book of Savanaclaw. This just released this past week. Shout out to my friend Tweak. He sent me his review copy because he's like, hey, I know you're into Twisted Wonderland. Do you want this? And I was like, yes, I want this. Yeah, I was really excited. And then last but not least, the one that I knew for certain I was going to do, and I think I mentioned in that poll, but I'm not sure, is the Failure at God School. I think this came out last month, not this month, but goodness, y'all, goodness. I read all three of these yesterday, and that book's upside down. I read all three of these yesterday, and what a wonderful, amazing reading day it is, but I'm going to talk about these in the order that I read them. So in that case, we were actually going to start off with the Failure at God School. So this is a new manga by Yen Press, and they have been marketing it as a romance, which we will talk about that in a moment after I tell you what the book's about, but they've also have been marketing and promoting that this is by the same creator as the Apothecary Diaries. Very different though, just as an FYI. But when it comes to this manga specifically, it's about our female lead. Her name is Nagi. She has a older brother. They're like twins, but he was born first. So I think about that because he calls her the younger sister. But they live at home and they have this family shrine. And unfortunately, their community, their town, and specifically their shrine has been very, I wouldn't say unpopular, but there's nobody that's coming to these places much anymore. And in this world, there are gods, as they call them. And these are people that have divine powers, and the government has actually made them have this official job title called a god, and they can help people depending on what their divine power is and help other people. In Nagi's family, it was her grandmother who had the divine power who really helped this shrine thrive. But she got her, Nagi's grandmother and her brother got into this horrible accident. Things happen. Now though, Nagi's brother technically has divine powers, but he doesn't really use them in a way that you would expect him to use. That's all I'll say because I don't want to give spoilers there. But fast forward a little bit, Nagi's going to school one morning and she finds out the news that the butcher's grandson, I believe, that he has been spirited away. And she's sort of like, that's sort of a little bit odd. And so she decides to take a detour through the forest for certain reasons, and she finds this young man. Some things go down, and suddenly the next day when Nagi's back home after these things have happened, Nagi finds herself being accepted into this god school. But where the title comes into play, she's sort of a failure because she was not raised as a person that had divine powers, even though in that moment with that kiddo, she demonstrated some pretty amazing divine powers. But she has no idea what they are. So here she is at god school trying to figure out what her divine powers are, failing at all of the things that like teachers and whatnot are trying to help her figure out, but they're like, she has something. She's sort of an oddball because she has these powers, but she's not able to activate them, for the lack of a better word. So this is Nagi's story, being at this magical school, seeing if she can unlock or harness this magical ability, as well as just navigate school life, because of course, you know, people got things to say when they're like, oh, you're here at God school, but you don't got no God powers. People gonna talk, people gonna give her a hard time. This first volume was wonderful. A huge shout out to my friend Danielle. She had put this on my radar. She had gushed about it. She's like, you need to read this. I think you will love it. Friend, she was right. I honestly was very worried going into this first volume. I was very scared that this would be sort of another repeat for me as with other series that I featured before, that I thought maybe it was just going to be overhyped and I would not be able to be caught up in the hype with everybody else. Thankfully, that was not the case. I got fully caught up in the hype with everybody else, and I think it's rightfully deserved. But you need to know know one thing. If there's one thing concerning this volume, and you're like, I don't want to watch anything else in this video, that's perfectly fine, but you need to know something. When you start The Failure at God School, it is not a romance. I repeat, it is not a romance. I really worry for this series because at least the initial license announcement by Yen Press, they called this series a romance, and I knew it was not because I had read scans or anything of it previously, but because my French reading friends told me there's really no romance. There's maybe a inkling or hint of romance, like by volume 6, volume 7. But before that, no, this is a friendship-focused manga. And so I think you need to know that, friends. If you're coming into this wanting romance, you are going to be disappointed. We don't have those blushy faces happening to even give us maybe an inkling, as I said, that something's gonna come. There's just not that. So you need to know this is not a romantic story. I didn't feel like that'd be a deal breaker for me personally, and I'm thankful I actually was warned in advance that it's not a romance, because I do feel like it could have been a deal breaker, honestly. And I do have a few friends who are like, I don't want any more because there's no romance. And I totally respect that. As a romance lover, I get that. However, there are two different things I really loved about this first volume, and I'm unsure of which one to talk about first, and that's Nagi herself as a heroine and the friendship vibe. I guess we'll talk about Nagi because she is the female lead here. I loved her. She's so down to earth. She has a huge heart for her family, for her brother, for her community. And we see her at the beginning where she's really wanting to revive this shrine. She's really wishing that she herself had these divine powers so that she could help her family, so she could help revive the entire community. And even when she doesn't have or thinks she doesn't have these divine powers, she still goes out of her way, like with the butcher's son or grandson, that she goes out of her way to help him. And she is doing everything she can. Like, she puts her life at risk, I feel like. We don't really know exactly what went down in that moment. We know there's a bad guy, but we don't know the bad guy's motivations. We don't even know who the bad guy is. And so for her to willingly put her life at risk or at danger just for another kid in her community really spoke a lot about her character. And even when she's in God School and she's failing, she's one of those heroines I love where she's like, I'm not going to give up. She's like, even if she's being belittled, even if she is at the bottom of her class when it comes to her studying or her grades, excuse me, she is still giving her all. And again, even when there is a school event that happens, which was one of my favorite parts of this first volume, she's like, man, I don't have divine powers. And there's a moment where she's like, man, I'm pretty useless because I can't do everything the same way everybody else is. But she stops that line of thinking. She still has those feelings. She's still struggling with like, man, I don't have a lot of value in this situation. But she's like, there is something I could do. And she decides to cook dinner for those around her. Small little things, like even one moment where she's climbing trees. It may seem so insignificant to other people. And there's one character that it seemed not significant to him. And I did not appreciate that. But everybody else, like, that mattered to them. They saw what she's doing. They saw her earnestness. And that as a whole, Nagi is a very earnest character. She's, again, going back to what I mentioned about the shrine, her family. It's her earnestness that is leading her to do what she can to revive her community, to bring back that excitement that she saw when she was a little girl and her grandmother was in charge of this shrine. She wants to bring that back. She wants to even help her brother, who is very much a recluse and uses his divine powers in an interesting way. She still even wants to help him. She doesn't want to be a burden to her parents, who seem to be working a whole bunch. She is trying and giving her all, and she's so incredibly caring. Like, when we have an outcast character, Nagi is the one who reaches out and extends a hand of friendship to this young woman. And I was like, you go, girl, you go. I really feel like because she has such this down-to-earth vibe, it made this first volume fairly relaxing to read. Is there some humor? Yes. I wouldn't say there's really any drama, but there is some action, and I just felt myself having a really good time reading this. And this would be a great lead-in to talk about the friendship vibes. I loved it. I remember that Colleen at Colleen Manga Rex, she did a first impression of this volume, and she had mentioned that there's not really an introduction to Nagi's friends in this school. And I do agree. I was a little bit bummed by that. It sort of feels like time passed and you see Nagi has been here for a while and she's made these friends. We don't really know them a whole bunch as a reader, like the introduction, in which I did miss that. But it wasn't it wasn't a deal breaker for her either, just to put that out there. But for me as well, it wasn't a deal breaker, but it was an interesting kind of experience of like, oh, this time already passed. We know Nagi went. We don't even know how long she's been there, but she's been there. And so you see these different friends who are helping her. Like, there's one girl, it's her name starts with the letter M. She has been helping Nagi to get her grades up. And there's another guy who's called Grizzly. Poor Nagi in this character because she gets such an interesting nickname. But even when this young man, I was about to make a reference to Twisted Wonderland. I was like, nope, this is the wrong manga. But he's in a really dangerous situation. And Nagi, again, puts herself out there to go help him because she saw he was in danger and she wanted to make sure that she could do something to help get rid of that danger. Even if everybody else is like, you don't got no powers, but she's still going out there and doing something. And when it came to the outcast young woman, who I loved, Nagi, once again, is being so kind-hearted. She is doing everything she can to help her feel welcome and include her in her group. Like, it was amazing. Like, this was a really strong first volume, and that's why I am bummed that it's being promoted as a romance, or it has been, even if I'm not sure if it is necessarily now. Like, I do feel like that could really harm people checking this out. But the friendship vibes and Nagi is a heroine. They are so, both of these things and her are so worth checking out and looking into. It's a really interesting and engaging first volume. I love how we have some magical shenanigans. Like, that was a whole bunch of fun to read. And then Nagi in the beginning, like, you really see her motivations plain as day. And I find like it's so compelling to read and where you want to read further to see, are the motivations she has, are those goals, those desires that she has, is it going to be fulfilled? Is it going to be met at some point? I'm here for it. And I suppose if this manga ever does become a romance, I would be here for it as well. But right now, I'm really happy that it's just a friendship-focused story. It's really wonderful, and I would highly recommend it. I don't really have anything to compare this to because I've heard a lot of people say, is it Gakuen Alice? There are a lot of people say if you like that series, you'll like this one, but I've never read it, never seen the anime or anything, so I don't have a comparison there. I definitely think if you like magical school settings and strong family vibes, strong friendship vibes, you would definitely probably like this one. It's one I definitely cannot wait to read more of. I am seated. And again, shout out to my friend Danielle for sharing her love with me of this series. I might have missed it otherwise, and I would have been super sad. Next up is my faves. We're going to be talking about Twisted Wonderland, the book of Savanaclaw. So there is a previous manga that is different, and I never know how to say it, but it is centered around Riddle and the boys in this dorm. This is a different series, and we'll talk a little bit more about why I'm saying this is a different series and why that's important to know. So when it comes to Twisted Wonderland, you should know that the manga is based off of a game that is available to play for free on, I know it's on Apple and Android. I don't think about it. So is it available on anything else? No. It is based off of a game, so this is an adaptation from that game. The premise here is, like a general overarching premise, is that the house we're in, the main characters, or just the guys in general in this series, are based off of or inspired by different Disney villains from different Disney classic films. So they have those qualities, and especially like the house warden, he will represent like the major bad guy. Like Leona here represents or has qualities of Mufasa from The Lion King, but there's other characters like Ruggy sort of represents or has a personality similar to the hyenas from The Lion King. And Jack is another character. And so everybody has something that can remind you of the bad guys in movies. But the bad guys here are really prestigious. They have a completely different view. They are considered the good guys, for the lack of a better word. But when it comes specifically to the book of Savanaclaw, it's going to be focusing on Leona and his struggles and some magical things that happen. So this story opens up with a young female. Her name is Yu. She does judo. She's super cool, but she's a young female who ends up getting isekai to Twisted Wonderland by a carriage. And here is this young woman at Night Raven College with no magical abilities and everybody else has it. But the head mage here is like, I'm a kind and generous soul, and I will allow you to stay at an abandoned dorm, and you can just sort of be like a janitor of sorts and clean up things and help look into things. Because here's the thing, there's a really major event that's happening at Night Raven College called the Spell Drive Tournament. For the lack of a better word, it's sort of like magical American football, and they need spells and magic to help drive the ball to get into the nets, or the goals, for the lack of a better word here. And the thing is, though, is all of these major key players for these different dorms that are like the best at spell drive are somehow suspiciously getting hurt. It seems like these are common goofs, like it may just be falling down the stairs or accidentally cutting yourself or accidentally burning yourself, but it's causing so much harmed that they can't participate in the spell drive tournament. So Crowley, the head mage, reaches out to you and Grimm, which is sort of like her sidekick, though he would say that that is his minion, his human minion, but they have been asked and tasked with the job of finding out who is the culprit, who is causing these injuries, even though nobody's doing anything, but something is happening. And so begins this first volume. Now, as a huge fan of Twisted Wonderland, of the game, I've talked about it before, gushed a whole bunch about when the anime news dropped, I really enjoyed this. It's really funny because I know I've talked about Patreon channel members in a video. I think I've talked about in another video, like just a public video. I was really unsure of how I would feel about our female you, because the thing you need to know is everybody at Night Raven College is a guy. I just didn't know how I felt about having this young female be at this all-guy school. And even though the creator had come out and said that any gender could come to this school, it sort of felt really weird, and I had a lot of reservations about it. But let me tell you, when we got to the first, not the very, very first page, because we see Leona in the first page, we see him first, but when we get to the first page that involves you, and we get like her backstory, look at her, y'all. She does judo. She is called the Queen of the Shoulder Throw, and my heart was captivated. It was captivated, and I said, let's go. I might have not been on board for her before now, but I am right now. And honestly, if there's one major complaint I had about this volume that I never expected to even be my complaint, it's that you really didn't have a major role in this volume. Now, when I did a first impression of the first manga series, so just volume 1, I mentioned how the male you in this series, that the artist did such a great job of like where you would be the center focused character, but he also would be in the background at times, but he was always involved with the main cast of characters. You here in Savanaclaw, I didn't feel that way. In fact, a really positive thing about this is this volume was so faithful from what I remember of the game. When it comes to the book of, or the Savanaclaw chapter in the game, it's one of my least favorites because I really don't like Leona's actions. So I feel like it stands out vividly in a more negative way in my mind. And it was interesting because going back to you and I feeling like she's not really being a main character, the times I felt like she's really on page and we're engaging with her as a reader is when you have prompts in the game asking you to make a choice of what should you, the character, do to interact with these guys. And that's really great because that means again that this manga is faithfully following the game, and to me that's something very important. So I love that, and I felt the beats matched perfectly. I felt like I was thriving in the sense of seeing the game scenes come to life in manga form. It was amazing. I was so giddy seeing some of my favorite characters, seeing some cameos. Perfection when it came to that. But what about you? What about the female character here who's only randomly popping up, it felt like? I did not feel like she was truly part of this main cast of characters. And I was really bummed because I wanted to get to know her the same way I got to know the other you in the first series. I never expected I would come on here and say, I'm really bummed that you didn't have more page time. And that was the thing. I mean, like if you look at these, like this was such a cute moment. Like she looks so cute. And this is one of the rare scenes I feel like used really on page. But the next moment they're interviewing these characters or these other people, students trying to figure out, do you know what happened? What do you think happened? But for the next like 4 or 5 pages, you looks like this. I'm trying to keep it spoiler free. She looks like this. She doesn't even have a face. And it's focused on these other guys and them explaining things. And again, that's not necessarily bad, but she's literally just being a background character. And I didn't want that. I didn't want that. I wanted her to feel, or at least seem, genuinely engaged in these characters' lives. Not just for those moments in the game where we had those prompts, but for every moment. Because she's cool. And it's funny, she says she's a normal high school girl. Girl, no, you're not. I don't know any normal high school girl that's doing 100 sit-ups just for fun. Like, girl, no. Not to bash her or anything. I loved her because of that. And like when there's a moment when there's about to be a fight and some turf if problems come up, she's like, I'll go. She don't care that she doesn't have magical abilities. She feels she is just as strong as the other characters who do have magic. So that was what was so cool about her character. She is different than the Yu we had in the other series. I love him. He's great. I thought maybe, well, if they're both having this martial arts background, maybe it's going to be too similar, but no, Yu is different on her own. She has this own kind of proactiveness. I really did love too how her and Grimm's relationship, where she just carries him in her arm all the time, like right here in the crook of your arm, I guess you would say. I thought that was really funny. So I do really miss that, at least in this first volume, the opportunity of not giving her more time to shine as a character among this already great cast of characters. Yes, she has interactions. I just wanted more. At the end of the day, I just want more. I mean, I still love the volume. I still thought it was fantastic. And there is so, I guess we'll go into some other things. When it comes to Leona, oh my goodness. And even Malleus, if you're a fan of either of those characters, there is so much eye candy that is awaiting you. I was like, I feel this creator had a really great time drawing some muscles of Leona, because you don't typically always see all of the muscles, or even a full him standing all the way and you can see him even in his shoes, which I think it's cool that he wears sandals. And I forgot to mention that he is a second prince of the nation that he was born in. Because he is second, he doesn't try at anything anymore. He just doesn't. I think I even saved a quote in my Goodreads review, because Jack, my best boy, which was looking amazing, he calls out Leona and he's like, you know, if you just tried, things would go so much better. And Leona gets completely triggered, where he's like, don't act like you know who I am or you know what's good here, because you don't know nothing about me. Yeah, because he's like, getting serious about anything changes absolutely nothing. And that leads me to say, unlike with the first series, I really do feel anybody could read this and enjoy it. There might be some things that feel really odd because you don't have that background history context of the game, but I feel like you get to know the characters as they are and you could just appreciate this as it is. The Book of Savanaclaw, no. I feel like, yes, somebody who wasn't familiar with the game or the characters, they could read this and I think they would like it, but I don't think they would have nearly the same enjoyment as a fan of the game, because even though the artist did do a good job of doing a recap of everything that happened with Riddle and the overblotting and all of that, like we get that great recap and it was good. I feel like there's things that happen that are not going to give you the same kind of intimate, that's not the right word, the same kind of context, yes, but you're not going to feel as drawn towards the characters. I feel like you actually might even see Leona as, at least I know I did when I first played the game, as pretty selfish and just not a very fun character. I'm sorry, Leona fans. I've changed my ways, though. Don't worry, the game has told me otherwise. But when we're talking about specifically this volume, I really feel like for non-Twisted Wonderland fans or players, this can be really off-putting. You sort of do still get thrown into this world, which is normal, I think, for the game. But like when you're seeing Ace and Deuce, who were very major players in the previous manga, I just don't know if you're going to feel the same way. I don't know if you're going to like it, the characters the same, and that you're going to want to know more about them, because, I mean, who wouldn't? They have a lot of great scenes. I was trying to show the art, but I'm trying to make sure, like this one is one of my favorite ones of Ace. But you still don't know fully who Ace is a character. Even Grimm, you don't know fully who he is either, except for he lives with you and he is a glutton. Another example would be is when Grimm gives a can of tuna to an injured student. That might seem really weird, of like, why the heck is Grimm giving a can of tuna to this injured student? That's a really big deal for Grimm. That is huge. But the manga is not explaining that to you, the reader, as to why that's a really big deal and why that context could be lost on somebody who's not familiar with the game and knows that Grimm's favorite food is a can of tuna. So those were a few nuances that I just don't feel like could be appreciated the same for a non-Twisted Wonderland player. And I'm sad to say that because I really want people to be able to enjoy this series. And again, I think you could like it or read it and like it. I just don't know if you would enjoy it enough to say, I want to keep going. So throwing that out there. Something else that I had meant to mention earlier that I thought was really good is I know about the overblotting of when these characters use too much magic and they just go unhinged and become crazy, more or less. They lose all sense of their well-being and they go off the deep end, for the lack of a better word, and will do anything to anyone who stands against them. This is a really great example of an overblotting scene. So because Riddle here overblotted in the first series, series, Crowley's really concerned that this could happen to other students. There's a scene here where Yu is like, and even Grim, they're like, what's blot? What is overblotting? And Crowley breaks it down and explains what it is and how it happens. I thought that was a wonderful lecture by our kind and generous head mage here. The example that was given in the manga clicked in my head and made sense. Not that I ever felt confused before as a Twisted Wonderland player, but specifically for that moment, it just made all sense. And I was like, I don't remember this being explained quite the same way when it came to the game. I don't know if I mentioned it. When it came to the art, I know I mentioned about Malleus and Leona having all the eye candy. Sorry, this video is all over the place, or this review is, but man, the art was really good. There were some really good moments. It is a different artist than the one with Riddle, as an FYI. Really enjoyed seeing these characters drawn in this way. Like, my favorite right here is of Jade, one of my favorites, and I really loved the brief interaction we had here. Again, going back to saying it was a very faithful adaptation of the game. Like, these scenes here were being brought to life in a really great way, and you sort of get to see, not sort of, you meet a lot more of the previous characters. And look at my boy Jack, though. He was great. He was great. I love Jack so much, and I was very, very happy the way he was represented. I love seeing where his struggle, because there is going to be a, not power struggle, but there's going to be something that goes down, and I think it was just drawn and conveyed really well, where we're seeing Jack's beginning struggle here in the last half of this volume. Even seeing Leona, not get excited, that's not the right word, but seeing him put some effort in for a change was really good as well. Just like this panel right here, seeing Jack's pain, anguish, thinking hard, all of that, like, I really, really love it. I thought it was so well done, and I loved it, y'all. I loved it. I know I was really bummed about the female Yu, but I feel like the art really made up for, no, it didn't make up for it. One thing I want for the next volume, and I'm hoping and anticipating, is you will have less of a background character vibe and a little bit more focused and involved, where she is at the front of panels rather than at the back of panels, like how I was shown earlier, where we didn't even see her face drawn. And so I want her to be more up front, and she's getting that spotlight a little bit. So overall, this is a really strong first volume, besides that one thing that I said about you, and I guess you would say complained about, but the art, I feel very confident. The story itself, though, that is where I feel most excited. Like, I'm really thankful that this is such a faithful adaptation of the game. Just like the first series, it comes to life in this really incredible way, and I feel like if you are a Twisted Wonderland fan or just play the game, you need to check out the manga. Strong chances are you will enjoy it. I do think it's a little bit, or maybe a little bit jolting to go from two different artists considering the series. That could be a little bit off-putting, maybe, because there are certain things where I even naturally found myself comparing how they're drawn here to the first series, which is unfair, and I don't mean to. There was that little struggle, though, but overall, this was a really good first volume. Very, very excited to read more, to see more of Jack. Like, yes, 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 and even some eye candy with Leona and the gang. I'm really curious to see how things are going to unfold next, and definitely will be picking it up. And last but not least, I'm going to talk about Trapped by His Love, the Duke's Unexpected Bride. I'm going to forewarn you in advance, I might have some controversial opinions on this. Just gonna throw that out there. So let's go ahead and dive right into what this book is about. It is about our main female lead. Her name is Alice Coleman. And the thing is, oh gosh, I forget what her like ranking is in society, but her family is sort of poor, and they have always sort of not looked up to, but tried to earn the favor, tried to be on the good side of this specific family who had a son that treated Alice horribly. Like, he verbally abused her at numerous points. We see things happen in the manga of like backstory that happened and how he treated her. We'll talk more about him in a minute, don't worry. But when the news comes out that that family wants Alice to marry him, and Alice's parents tell Alice this, she is like, no, I don't want to ever marry that man. I think his name's Gray. She's like, no, I want nothing to do with him. So she tells her best friend at school, she's like, what am I going to do? She's like, you know what? I'm going to go to the school gate, and the first man that walks through that gate, I am going to propose to them, ask if they will be my fiance and want to get married. And that's exactly what she does. She goes to the school gate, and she meets this young man here. His name is Arthur, and she says, I don't think she made eye contact, and she's like, will you marry me? Will you be my fiance? To her shock, he says yes. He says yes. And so the story unfolds of their very unconventional love story of them being a new couple living out their romantic love story, I guess you would say. This is two types of male leads. You have our stalker right here, Mr. Arthur, who I think the creator said is a yandere. Hopefully I'm saying that name right, or that term right. And then you have Gray, the verbal abuser. Those are your picks. Those are your picks. Let me tell you, I don't like Gray. I hate Gray's guts. I have no sympathy for that man. He completely verbally abused Alice. Alice has suffered the consequences, has no kind of self-esteem or worth or value because of that man. And there's a turning point where Gray's like, oh, she doesn't want to marry me? Preposterous. Why wouldn't she want to marry me? When we sort of get this clued inness of like, he's always loved her. Yet he has never once shown it to her that he ever loved her. He treated her like garbage, said nobody would love her, that she's ugly, and that nobody's just ever going to want her. Ever. Period. So she shouldn't even hope for love, okay? And then when he finds out she's engaged to Arthur here, who looks amazing and acts amazing, he's angry. He's genuinely baffled. And he calls himself the greatest fool of all time. And I said, hello, buddy, you're right. You're the greatest fool. I'm glad you know. I'm glad you know your identity, buddy, because I have no sympathy for this man. None. He dug his grave. He can go rot in it for all I care. I have felt the effects and suffered from verbal abuse, so I have zero tolerance for that man, and I have no sympathy for him. Nothing. He gets nothing from me because he deserves nothing. Maybe that's really harsh, but like I said, due to things that have happened in my life, nope. I just know. If you really loved Alice, you would have treated her 10 times better. I don't care what your mama told you. I don't care even what your daddy told you, and you felt that you needed to do certain things to prove yourself. Putting down somebody like that proves nothing but that you are not a cool person. So end of day, hope that guy doesn't show up because he has someone to read volume 2. Yes, I got a feeling he's going to come around, and I'm just like, dude, I hope that you stay out of Alice's face, and if anything happens where you try and get in her face, I hope that people come after you and make you know you better not make that mistake again. So yeah, obviously I am not on that guy's team. I don't care how cute he is, which I don't really think he was that cute anyway. Arthur, on the other hand, I really loved, and let me tell you, stalking is not romantic. Stalking is not a good thing, period. But in this manga, it's okay. And I know that may sound really bad. This is a fictional series. Just as an FYI, this is a fictional series, and I don't condone stalking ever. But I will say this is really compelling writing just for the fact that Alice, when you see some later chapters and you see how she has degraded herself and fully believes the lies that Gray has told her from growing up, I was like, Arthur, you have nothing but the best intentions in your heart when it comes to Alice. And for the most part, outside of the stalking, that is 100% accurate. And that's why I can overlook his actions. Like, be your yandere self, because he genuinely loves Alice, and I want him to genuinely show Alice that she has love, that she has value, that she has purpose, that all that stupid mess that Grace said, none of it is true. It's just Arthur's pretty extreme. And we definitely see that happen at numerous points where he's like, I've always loved you, Alice. And it's like, he's always loved her. Like, but it seems like they just met for the first time. And there's this little nuggets where it's like, something's not right. And it's like, even when Arthur's parents meet her and Arthur's dad looks really angry and like, oh, I don't want this girl to marry my son. But then he sees it's Alice. And he's like, oh, I'm so glad it's you. Everything makes sense. No, nothing makes sense, because how do you know Alice and what is going on? Like, there's just that little element of mystery that's making you ask those questions. But Arthur, he has a heart of gold when it comes to Alice. I will give him that. In the sense, he loves her deeply, unconditionally. There's nothing Alice could do wrong except for maybe talk to another guy. But even then, it's okay. He wants nothing but her affection and to show that she's worthy of affection. And I just loved him for it. I loved him for it. I'm not a Team Yandere kind of person. I'm just not. I tried Firefly Wedding. The male lead was a little bit extreme for me. So for me to say that Arthur's fine, he's great, be himself, he can do no wrong, is like, Laura, what happened? Because that is not usual for me at all. In fact, the only other character that I know of that can do no wrong, even if they do wrong, is Navier's brother from the Remarried Empress. That man can do no wrong in my eyes, because it's all in the name of love for Navier. And that's pretty much what's happening here. Everything Arthur's doing is in the name of his love for Alice, which obviously can be dangerous. That could be dangerous. And I'm like, please. don't do nothing dangerous because I don't want to be changing my tune here. But I want to get volume 2. Now, when it comes to Alice herself, I don't feel she is an over compelling heroine. I feel like the writing itself is compelling because there's just the way Alice's heartbrokenness and just her pain and the trauma she has undergone, and then having this man whose devotion is like 1,000 times overboard really mixes well in making me want to keep reading. But Alice herself, I feel like is just sort of, I wouldn't say put here in this situation. I feel like there's going to be a love power struggle between Arthur and Gray. Gray don't have a chance, he just don't. But I feel like there's going to be something that happens there, but I don't feel like it's shallow, like she's shallow or anything, but there's so much there that I want for Alice. I want to see her happy. I genuinely want that for her. And so I feel like in that sense, that's another thing that really makes me like her. I see parts of myself in her where you're believing these lies that you've been told, and it's taken you so long. Granted, it's really sped up for her, it took me years, but where it's taken you so long to really view yourself in a different and positive mindset compared to what you viewed yourself all along, or at least, you know, until the other person entered your life and ruined it. So I like her. I like her as a character. I just feel like, because a lot of the reviews were really negative and said that she just didn't have much to her. And I feel like if I compared her to Nagi, no, she would not be up on that same level. She just wouldn't. But I don't mean that in a way to disrespect Alice. It's just different. Because I didn't feel this story was shallow or anything like that. I feel like the motivations sort of made sense for everybody. We have that mystery, so I don't really know what Arthur's motivations are, except for he deeply loves Alice and he wants nobody else in the world. But overall, like I said, very controversial. I liked it a lot. I think I gave it 3 stars or 3.5 stars. I thought the art was nice. This was a very cute moment where he's seen her all dressed up, because Alice at this point has never done her hair, worn makeup because of all the stupid things Gray told her. And so she's gotten dressed up, and she's beautiful even without getting dressed up. But Arthur was especially touched. And I love when they go on a date later. I didn't like this page where she's feeling like she needs to change. Like, girl, just be yourself. And I think she's slowly coming to that, or coming around that, where she sees that she can be herself. And I really did love how Arthur is, you know, just reminding her that he's asking her, you know, what is it about me that you love? And she's explaining these things, and he's like, well, don't you think you must be truly amazing for being loved by someone like me then? I don't know, hopefully it doesn't sound bad, but I just thought that was something that made sense to me, where it's like, man, you love this person so much, and you have them. I'm talking about Alice. She holds Arthur in a high regard. That's amazing to be loved by someone that you deeply care for, or starting to deeply care for. So I look forward to seeing where their romance goes. I really feel like Arthur's not going to hurt Alice. As he says right here, I wish that you would fall in love with me, and I'm hoping the same thing. I'm hoping for good things. That is the #1 reason I want to keep reading. I want to see Alice's happiness, and I hope that that unfolds quickly. Not in a way that where the storytelling feels rushed and the art feels like scattered or anything, but everything that comes together, just moving forward at this gradual pace, showing Alice become a happier human being because she's by Arthur's side. So would I recommend this? Yeah, but I think you need to be okay with problematic male leads, I guess you would say. That male leads that are not going to be fluffy and may have you like raising your eyebrow like, I just don't know, you know, like leaves you question a little bit. This is probably one of the only series that I have that is like this. I don't have anything I compare it to or that I have read, but here I am seated and very curious to see where this series is going to go. But as you can see, it was a win for all of these mangas. So thank you, friends, for voting. And thank you, Danielle, once again for this recommendation. I'm thankful for all of you guys choosing what I should read and review, and looking forward to getting volume 2 of each of these. So, but I would love to hear from you, friends. Have you read any of these? Which of these sound the most interesting to you? Let me know down below. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And thank you so much for watching. Bye!